Management. Attorney Nathaniel Lee, a lawyer with credibility, success, and experience. Representing people in hundreds of jury trials, Nathaniel Lee is who you want by your side in the courtroom. You've seen the rest, now hire the best. Contact Lee, Cosell, and Feigley today. And now, to address the legal concerns of the community, Praise AM 1310, 95.1 FM presents Legally Speaking. Here are today's hosts.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our show once again. We're broadcasting live from the National Bar Convention in Chicago today. The National Bar Association was formed in 1925, and it was formed because back in those days, the Black lawyers could not join the White Bar Association, and it is thrived and is still strong today. And we're hosting our 100th convention here in Chicago. Today, I got on my superstar panel attorney, Marlon Primes, who formerly with the Department of Justice, to give insight into some of the calamities that's occurring in our country today. As a point of beginning, the news every day, you can't watch any TV station and not get trumped out. There's so many crazy things that are occurring in our national news cycle, and so many emanate from the White House. So normally we like to talk about legal issues today, but every legal issue that we're dealing with has something to do with the White House now. Now, folks, I was critical of those major law firms that capitulated to the Trump agenda and agreed to settle. He had issued an executive order barring them from even entering the federal building. But the problem is, what most people don't realize, law firms are one of the last profession to desegregate. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking that the reason why, at first I thought, why would they do that? They're like some of these firms, billion-dollar law firms, why would they fold so easy? Are they a bunch of cowards? Why would any client hire these guys if they fold for an executive order that was clearly illegal? Then I did some soul searching. I came to the conclusion, the obvious. These law firms folded because they did not want to protect the interests of minority attorneys. See, in the typical law firm, their percentage of African-American attorneys is less than 2%. What are we going to do? Have zero again? And so, but today we'll start off with this draconian settlement with Columbia University. Marlon, you have a chance to read that settlement. It stinks.
Oh my goodness. Well, hey, it's certainly good to be here at the Bar Association and Nathaniel Lee case. We're celebrating our 100th anniversary. And, this settlement really harkens back to a day that we thought was long past. And the problem that I think the audience should understand is that they're really repurposing the United States Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. What they're doing is they started that division out, protecting the rights of African Americans, making sure that there was a open society that we weren't moving as current commission indicated towards one society, two separate societies, one black, one white. So what they did, certainly it's appropriate to police and make sure individuals are Jewish representation are not subject to sentences. But they go a little further than that with providing $200 million that's going to that's part of the settlement, plus $21 million that will go to him that allegedly agreed because of being accepted in protest. But the problematic thing is that they're going to have a permanent monitor that will monitor admissions, hiring decisions, things of that sort. And then the administration, again, this is going to be a model for other universities. And one of the things they asked for, Nathaniel, they asked for information regarding admissions, grade point averages, standardized test scores, And we know from experience that those aren't accurate predictors of our success, because in America, unfortunately, we have so many high schools that are just unequal. Many schools don't even have advanced placement classes. So you're going to have them take a placement exam without taking some of these courses. Now, they're eventually going to catch up when they get those courses. But if you're locking in and testing them during that period of time when they're under-resourced, you're going to have a disastrous impact on the number of African Americans going to get opportunities to go to school. So I think we need to really pay very careful attention to the settlement, very careful attention to this monitor. And a lot of the criticism is that, well, hey, how does, monitoring, Black enrollment have to do with anti-Semitism? And I think a number of critics have indicated, and I think rightfully so, that, hey, this is, mainly an excuse to really remake these colleges and universities like, some of our more conservative colleges around the country, such as Hillsdale College. And that would be unfortunate. So I think we really have to take a careful look at this. And I think, we have a number of folks that have went to schools all around the country. It's really important for us to be vocal and, encourage our universities to stand up and not, give up their academic integrity. Now, Columbia has indicated that, hey, this won't have a big impact, and, it will allow them to get funding for research and all that sort of thing. But my question is, at what cost? And, what is the student body? What is the faculty going to look like in the future? And that's certainly, for me, very problematic. So we have to see how that turns out.
Well, the problem I have is that the same issue I have with the law firm I have with Columbia University, Martin. And here's the deal. Only about 5% of the students at Columbia University are Black. So what are they trying to get it down to 0%? I mean, quite frankly, we seen a rollback in racial progress that we made during the last century. Folks, right before our eyes, we're seeing a dramatic rollback in the ability to succeed. Now, here's why this is important. If you take any neighborhood and you look at the demographics and you look at the educational levels of the citizens in that zip code. So if you have neighborhoods where the average degree is a master's or doctor's degree, then that neighborhood wealth is going to be in the upper echelon. On the other hand, if you take a neighborhood with all the neighbor residents, high school dropouts, then the economic of that neighborhood is going to be substantially lower statistically. So if the universities cut out the ability for Black students to succeed and matriculate, then we're going to see a decline in the wealth in our neighborhoods. It's a sad commentary, but what they're doing is that they're reversing racial progress made in America. People died for, they fought for. We served our country. We did great things, but we're seeing a dramatic rollback. And we're not getting allies. The law firm folded, and now we see a famous university follow the same juncture.
Yeah, it's certainly a sad day. And if we don't remember the past, we're condemned to repeat those past mistakes. Many of you may remember, me telling you the story. Nathaniel went to the University of Georgia. I had him on. Her parents and even grandparents, worked, they paid taxes. And, when it was time for her to apply to go to college at the University of Georgia, they had a policy that no African Americans could be enrolled. So their policy was that, hey, we're so entrenched in discrimination, we're going to pay you to go to a university outside of the States. She went to New York University. And that's why many African Americans that were fortunate to go to college in the 50s go to other schools outside of the state. So, it's certainly, disconcerting. But one of the things I really want to point out, because I want to give your audience really ammunition that we don't want to go back to those dark days. So I think the question you need to really ask, some of our conservative brothers and sisters is that if you look at every high school, you look at a lot of these colleges, you look at these law schools, there's a line of demarcation. You look at the class picture, 50s, the early 60s, all male, all white, very few African Americans, very few women. So are conservative brothers and sisters making the argument that that's what merit looks like? That somehow God just blessed this subset of our population and nobody else would qualify? We all know that wasn't true. We know that those individuals, African Americans, women, were denied those opportunities. And that's why affirmative action was designed to make sure there are affirmative steps to make sure that our universities are inclusive. So we really got to be vocal, talk about, admission to these universities, because this is the pathway to the middle class. And I go back to the Kerner report when our cities around the country were, on fire from riots. And the push was, hey, we're going to do more by opening it up employment at the federal government, by providing opportunities for individuals to be admitted to our college and universities. We're going to take steps to make sure that attrition rate doesn't go through to become problematic, where it's a revolving door in terms of women and people of color. And I think, if we're not careful, we'll go back to those pictures that you saw on the wall, those high schools and colleges around the country where there are very few African Americans, very few women. So we really got to become vocal. We have to work within our alumni association. Importantly, we have to educate our community about what's happening before it's too late.
Okay, Imhotep, you had a question or comment for us today, sir. Go ahead and unmute now. Imhotep.
Okay. Hello, brother Nate. We have to. It's a pause. We have to press *6. So, how you doing?
Fantastic. What do you think about that Columbia capitulating to the Trump, paying $220 million?
I thought that was a travesty. We know from the research, Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and all of them profited off enslavement. They haven't paid any reparations. They keep having these committees talking about paying reparations, but they haven't paid any. I just saw a letter the other day where a number of Jewish groups were getting even more monies paid out from Germany. So it's a slap in the face. I don't, I'm not disparaging whether they're not disturbed. I don't like, you're not supposed to, I thought the American, I'm an ex-military veteran. I thought the American philosophy was you don't negotiate with terrorists. So Trump is a terrorist in a way. He's using the terroristic tactics. And so then they negotiate with this terrorist, just like Paramount did, paying the $16 million, lying on firing Stephen Colbert or whatever. And then that deal got passed and went through the other day. And I'm telling all my black people, if you do, I don't watch BT, but Paramount owns BT. Under this deal that they signed to buy Skydance or whatever it is, the company that they merging with or whatever they're buying, they're getting rid of all DEI officers, any inclusion period, from acting, from the cameraman, from the editor, from the engineer, from the stunt person. Do you understand? If you've never been to California, people, you never taken a tour of movie studios, that is an industry. 64% of the people in Los Angeles work in the entertainment industry. That's going to take a major hit to black people. Stuntmen, cameramen, you name it. Quit watching anything Paramount has, including BET. That's the shakedown that's going on. But I'd like to see Columbia. Okay, if you feel this way, then you and Yale and all of you all Harvard, you all over reparation. Georgetown and all of you all. We're not going to eliminate these people because they sound pretty, and we want inclusion in these schools. I say forget these schools. I disagree with the gentleman, your guest. I say we need to go back to promoting our schools, like all the teachers that taught me back in the 60s and 70s that graduated from Spelman and Meharry and FAMU and Winston-Salem State and Clark and all those others, Lincoln, my old school I went to for a year in Jeff City, Missouri, HBCU. So Central State and all these other places like that. forget them, because this is the way we in right now. We're in this type of climate. So there's no need of trying to push. You can't squeeze a square token in a round hole. And that's where we are. But we do have ways out. We do have our own to be able to focus on. I wanted to ask you about the Supreme Court approving Trump getting rid of the Democratic people that was on the Consumer Product Safety Commission. And then Robert Kennedy is now going to eliminate all the scientists on the Health and Human Services Board that help with health policy and stuff like that. What is the Supreme Court, I guess, what are they doing? They're just handing over the country to ignorance? What is the logic in all this going on? And I'll just see your answer off here. Thanks.
Well, it's obvious. Marlon can address the rights of federal workers, but here's the problem. We're seeing the end of American democracy as we know it. We're seeing the country slowly turn into what is headed toward a dictatorship. We're not quite there yet, but we're headed that way. We're seeing the erosion of the American norms. Every day you wake up, there's a Trump story. We see this diatribe about the Epstein file. It was something that I didn't pay a lot of attention to at first because we had the current president admitted on TV that he would grab women in inappropriate spots during the Planet Hollywood story. We saw him say that in on mouth. We saw 20 plus women file sexual type claims against him. We saw him lose a lawsuit against a lady for what amounted to a sexual assault in an apartment store. So it wasn't surprising that, given the history, that there would be some connection. However, what I didn't expect for it to be a continuing news story day after day after day with continuing information being leaked. So I didn't understand why this story got more attention than the other sexual type misadventure. I don't know, but Marlon could probably, because he's a former Department of Justice. What was disturbing is that the attorney who prosecuted him was fired by the Justice Department without notice of process. Marlon, what's this process? I mean, federal employees have rights. What the hell's going on here?
Right. And there's a lot of misnomers out there that, hey, a federal employee cannot be fired when it comes to Trump administration got him from office. That is not true. Employees get fired all the time, including federal employees. The only difference is for a federal employee, if you are terminating for someone for cause, you have to basically issue a notice of proposed termination, give that individual an appropriate amount of time to respond in writing. The notice is in writing. And then there's an independent person, perhaps, that doesn't know the facts and circumstances at that agency will make a determination as to whether or not the misconduct occurred and is worthy of a termination. So even if the misconduct occurred, then this independent person determines, hey, is termination the appropriate remedy? Should it be a suspension? Should it be a suspension without pay? And you look at a number of different factors in terms of, past discipline, their performance evaluation, all that stuff was thrown out the window. And that's certainly problematic because when there was a remaking of our society following the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and some of the civil rights legislation, one of the first places to hire people of color and women was the federal government. So if we're eliminating those protections for the federal government, certainly that's going to have a dramatic impact on African Americans. And also, Nathaniel, as you probably know, and many of your listeners will note, that these past few months have been atrocious for African American women. The firings and layoffs of African American women is through the ceiling. And a big result of that is because of the fact that many of them were hired by the federal government because they weren't able to get opportunities elsewhere. So it's certainly, troublesome that we're eliminating those protections to make sure that we're not going back to a workforce that was basically just, based on politics or a homogeneous workforce. We want to make sure that individuals that pay taxes, that are part of our society, that our officers represent the society that they're working for. We don't want to go back to days where women, people of color are excluded. So if we're laissez-faire with these restrictions about providing a notice of termination, here are the charges, proposed termination, give you the opportunity to respond. It's a clear and present danger, not only to people of color, but it's a clear and present danger to the mission of these institutions, because if they're making decisions without the benefit of having a diverse viewpoint, diverse thought, they're not going to be effective.
Well,
so it's problematic on a number of different fronts.
What about this? We saw a distinguished member of the Southern District of New York, U.S. Attorney Office. She had prosecuted pre-Diddy and Epstein, and she was terminated. Now, I'm not a fan of that particular federal jurisdiction, but it just seemed that the process was flawed. What would be the steps that a terminated federal employee could take to get reinstated or damages? How does that work? In other words, if you have a normal person, if they're doing it like in the city of Indianapolis, there's an administrative process you could file with the city, discrimination, and you could litigate it through the city process. Then there's a state process, but the state process is flawed because the governor in Indiana replaced the Civil Rights Commission, and their focus is not to do civil rights involving African Americans, but to do age and things like that, or reverse discrimination. So we've kind of lost that. In the federal system, I think that the same thing has occurred, that they've lost their focus on the representation of African Americans in terms of civil rights process. So, but those doors foreclosed, what's the remedy for federal employees and how they go about?
So the next step, as I mentioned before, you have, it's supposed to be a notice of proposed termination. Get that in writing, and here's what you've done wrong that makes us believe you can be terminated, A, B, C, D, or whatever. You have an opportunity to respond. You have an opportunity to get counsel. There's an independent person at that agency that makes a determination. Should you be terminated? Did you engage in the misconduct? What are the mitigating factors? If they determine that, okay, hey, you should be fired, then you have the right to appeal to what's been known as the Merit System Protection Board. Now, that's important because it's a body that was created with the Civil Service Reform Act of 1978. And the whole idea is that we did not want a politicized federal workforce. And we wanted to make sure that people are hired based on their qualification and not fired for political or improper reasons. Now, the problem, to bring the question full circle, is that what this administration is doing is that they're firing all these administrative agencies, so they're not functioning. So, you're supposed to get a hearing, but if it's hamstrung and people are being laid off, and then coupled with some of these conservative jurisdictions, even in the private sector, going to the EEOC, they're under-resourced, even in Democratic administrations. And now they're even further under-resourced. So, she may get her job back, but it may be 3 years from now, And so, she'll get attorney's fees under the civil rights statute, but what do you do in the interim? Now, my guess is it's a high-profile case. She'll probably get a job at a law firm. But my concern is, hey, what about the run-of-the-mill person that doesn't have a father that was a former FBI director and they get terminated? Where do they go? What sort of relief? Hey, how do they pay their bills and pay, student loans? Basic needs. So it's certainly problematic.
Well, it's a problem, though. Most people understand government lawyers pay ain't that great. They get a paycheck to pay their bills, but they don't get rich. You don't work for the federal government to get rich. You do it because it's an honor and it's service to your country. That makes them real clear. Their income is restricted and they don't earn only a fraction of what big law firm pays. So these are dedicated attorneys doing what they think is right to maintain justice. Every now and then I ran across a few that were overtly aggressive, but they're doing what they think is in the best interest of the United States of America. Somewhere along the road, we've simply lost that, what I consider the true pursuit of justice and accountability. We saw something that was shocking to me, Marlon. We saw people try to overthrow the federal government, and about 1,500 of those folks had charges and conviction and things like that. And then we saw the president pardon people who even attempted to overthrow the federal government.
Okay.
That tried to overthrow the federal government, caused injuries, even death to police officers, and there's no accountability. Now, as part of the process, there were thousands of dollars levied against folks for fines and penalty. Remember, there was a substantial amount of damage caused to the federal government. They looted things, they broke things, and so there's fines and penalties that are administered as part of their punishment. When the president granted them a pardon, that meant that those fines and penalty were erased. And so now, who's going to pay for the damages? Well, you are, the American taxpayers. And that's my problem, is that when we look at our justice system now, I had a person this week say, we're looking at the injustice system that we've seen occur in just the last 5 months, that we're seeing a slowly erosion of American democracy as we know it.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, one of the things I want to kind of share with you is your audience should know the name Nathaniel Jones. He succeeded Thurgood Marshall in working with the NAACP and doing legal work on their behalf. And one of the things he told me, he was the first African-American assistant U.S. attorney in Northern District of Ohio, where I later became an assistant U.S. attorney. And, you know, that was before the 1978 Civil Service Reform Act. So he says, Marlon, the process is to be an assistant U.S. attorney, you had to go to the political office, either the Democrat or Republican Party, and interview. So it really didn't have a lot to do with politics. And, you know, and as a result, you know, the quality wasn't as good and people weren't as well served. And the other problem is that if it's based entirely on politics, what do you think people are going to be doing in the presidential year? They're going to be looking for a job. Instead of representing the United States, they're going to be saying, hey, what is my next job opportunity? So people thought, well, hey, this doesn't make a lot of sense. They're protecting the public trust, especially those that do civil litigation or criminal, you know, protecting the public from crime. We want them laser focused on the United States interests. And when you get away from the principles of the 1978 Civil Service Reform Act, it's a danger to us all. Now, the other thing I'll say that's really problematic to me is that, you know, there have been reports, press reports of all types of emails being sent out by the Department of Justice indicating that, you know, suggesting that you should have a loyalty to the president and his administration. No, that's entirely wrong. As a lawyer, you have the allegiance to the rule of law. You are an officer of the court, and as a federal employee, you proudly stand up and say, I represent the people of the United States of America. And if we get that twisted and people think that they're representing one person, hey, we're all in danger. And so that's something that we really need to be concerned about and really make sure people refocus and understand the important role of our federal agencies and our federal attorneys.
Well, what should happen, in my opinion, is this. In the midterm election, it should be a rollback and there should be a change in the political waters. I fully expect for Democrats to retain control of a House representative and hopefully the Senate. Now, the reason that's important is that you can have some accountability. What we saw in the Biden administration that really was educational. Following the Trump laws in the 2020 election, we saw massive litigation. And in that litigation, we saw lawyers on that side make false representation to the court in terms of the election outcome, voting, and things like that. And you saw what happened to those lawyers. They got suspended, disbarred, or fined. And so the legal system held. They were held accountable. Now, I suspect that as soon as the water changes over again, this flagrant disregard of our system of justice, I suspect that there will be some accountability. I can't imagine, I watched, Marlon, a situation where the congressional person was outside of a detention center in New Jersey. And I watched a congressional person, and then I watched the mayor get arrested. And now you got to remember, the mayor is the chief executive officer of the city, and the congressional person, their oversight committee is over the administrative process in the government and ICE. So we see that occurring, and at the same time, we saw the president lawyer, Lena Hobbit, file criminal charges against a sitting U.S. congressperson. Now, when you watch that video, you said, has she lost her freaking mind? There was no crime committed, yet we have a person charged with a crime. And so the likely outcome of that, 4 years down the road, I suspect there's going to be some accountability, Marlon. I can't imagine that this flagrant abuse of power will go unpunished.
I hope so. And, I just hope that people get out and vote and don't become apathetic. So I think that, we can't look at it that it's a foregone conclusion. There's going to be a change in leadership in the House. Right now, this administration is trying to, redistrict a number of states, including my home state of Ohio and also Texas. And the whole idea is to make more Republican-leaning districts. So, people are really going to have to be made aware. That's why we need people in the audience to let your friends and your family, your colleagues say, hey, vote your conscience, but at least, know the facts. Now, let me just comment briefly. And Renee is in the New York City area. She may have some insight, regarding New Jersey. But the problem is that some of the statements attributed to this U.S. attorney are unprecedented. You have someone who's a sitting, acting U.S. attorney talking about, hey, I'm trying to assist, a political party, a Republican Party. That's unheard of. You may, obviously, there's politics involved, but I've never seen it that open and that flagrant. And as a consequence, she got an appointment as the acting U.S. attorney, and the federal judges within the District of New Jersey, because New Jersey is one district in of itself. They basically said, "Hey, we are not going to, affirm her continued appointment." And they appointed someone else, and the administration turns around and fires that person. Yeah, and then Hava, they turn around and say, "Okay, I'm going to appoint you, first assistant," so that she's back in office. And so that's certainly problematic because, hey, we know politics takes place, but as a federal prosecutor, you have so much power. We have power to destroy reputations. And as a consequence, we need to make sure people are focusing on the law as opposed to trying to get people because of their political affiliation. I would love to hear what Renee has to say. As she talked about Columbia University and maybe, what's going on in, Metro New York. And how that's being perceived as it relates to what the U.S. attorney is doing there.
Okay, caller, go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, caller, what's your comment today?
This is Guy calling. I just wanted to say that in this particular political climate, we have a situation similar to what happens in the human body when there are malignancies. The malignancies start small, and they get their strength utilizing the systems of the body. If you catch what I'm saying, and it seems that this is a similar situation to what is happening in the United States of America today. So, if you want to get rid of malignancies, you have to be intentional, and I think one way to do that, which a tool that I don't think we've used enough, if at all. We need to poll our community more. You know, we have a lot of polls that occur, so-called polls, and I think that we definitely need to have polls that represent our community. And I'm calling upon organizations such as yours and others to maybe consolidate with other similar groups in the community to develop such a poll, and wonder what you thought about that.
I don't know. There's a lot of issues, and what I see more than anything else, I see the rot in our political climate. I see every day, right before our eyes, I see criminality, open and obvious criminality. Each day we see that, and it go unchecked. I think that one of the basics is that the Supreme Court issued an order basically say that the president can do no wrong in a nutshell. So now with that order, somehow they made the president similar to a king or something. So, like, give you a good example. When the president traveled to a foreign country, and so everybody knows that the president of the United States cannot accept gifts from foreign countries. But yet, where the president goes, there is a collateral process, whether there's a new golf course or some deal for funding. It's just overt. What I see is improper conduct by a president, a sitting president. Now, unfortunately, there's no accountability. On the other hand, though, this attack on minority should not go unpunished. And so the only way we can fix this constant attack of the erosion of progress, racial progress we made during the last century, is that we got to get out in the midterm and vote like we never voted before. We have to go out and work harder. Okay, let's go to the next caller. Go ahead, caller. You have a question or comment for us? Hello? Caller? Okay, producer, we lost them. Go to the next caller. Okay, we lost them. Okay, you have to call back. But in any event, Renee made some really great points about Columbia University. And I was concerned that you had an acting president, Renee, at Columbia University cut this deal. That didn't make any sense to me. But the other thing is, I don't see these folks fighting and standing up for the rights of Blacks now. I mean, it's almost like they don't care. And so what will these universities look like 3 years from now? When you go to the universities now, and if you went to graduation, I've been to a couple, there's very few Blacks that are getting advanced degrees already. I mean, even like in Indiana, when I went to Purdue, my son's graduation when he got his MBA, I mean, I only seen 2 Blacks getting their MBAs, and PhD, I didn't see any. And I was concerned about that. I mean, already we had so few of people of color, of Blacks, African Americans, obtaining these degrees, and now we're getting fewer. And so I'm concerned that the way we're heading is that we're going to be less than 1%. I don't know how people don't recognize that, Marlon.
Yeah, I agree. I think the big thing too is that, there's such a issue in terms of making sure people get the appropriate information. One of the things that I think is really important is that we have a hidden gem in national public radio stations all across the country. And in my view, they give in-depth analysis on issues, not only in the United States, but abroad. And funding has been cut. And that, as a matter of fact, the administration took the unprecedented step of appropriations are already given 2 years in advance, and they voted to claw back millions of dollars. And a number of these stations are going to close or, not be able to provide that local news and information that they have done in the past. So that's certainly problematic. So the problem is that, yeah, you want people to go out and vote, but there's so much misinformation on social media. And so people aren't understanding the true issues. You have people that are directly impacted. They don't have any insurance, but they're voting and saying that the Medicaid cuts are fine. So I mean, it's just mind-boggling. So, I want to be an optimist in terms of, there being a change and there being oversight. So if the House changes to Democrat, you'll be able to have investigation, you'll be able to have pushback. But unless people get the information, they do their due diligence. And people on this call take it upon themselves to educate people, especially people that are, spewing misinformation about important issues.
Okay, caller, you have a question or comment for us today. Go ahead. Hello, caller, you're on air. Okay, you need to unmute. Caller.
Hi, guys. I'm sorry, I muted myself.
Go ahead.
Hello. Hi.
Yeah,
sorry, this is Renee. This is Renee from New York City. I wanted to thank you for taking my call.
It's crazy what's going on in New York.
My goodness. How's you, Renee?
Yeah, you got a university that shipment. Was she selling you guys out there? What the heck's going on there?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm surprised that New York is very much in the news right now. I moved from Texas because Texas is crazy. I ran for a political seat there. Obviously, I didn't win, and then I decided to move back to New York. But I'm kind of surprised that New York is all in the news. I thought that we would be a state that would be very much on the progressive, moving forward side. But so as far as Columbia University, I'm really disappointed in the president. Can you guys hear me? I'm sorry. My phone has been acting out.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah. I mean, I don't see Claire Shippen PhD. How in the hell did she become president of the university? I don't see the credentials. What am I missing?
I'm not sure, attorney. All I can tell you is that I graduated back in 1997. I'm giving my age away. So I graduated in 1997. I've been, a New Yorker true and blue for a long time, but I've lived different places. And I'm not sure why they decided to make her acting president. All I can say is that the alum is very upset about the whole thing. And we've reached out to the president individually to let her know what we think and what we feel. So that's the only thing I can say about it. I've directly reached out. We're very disappointed. We're embarrassed by her move. And I'm not understanding where this $221 million is going to.
Yeah, but how does she become president of a prestigious university without a PhD, law degree, or MD or something? How did that happen?
She was on the board when they fired the president, and then she became acting and then president.
Yeah, but they don't have anybody on the board with PhDs, law degrees, I don't get that. How do you become the head of a prestigious university without the right credentials?
Yeah. I think we got to really be careful, and I want to be clear that anti-Semitism is wrong. No one should be discriminated against because of their religion, because of their race, sex. But we have to be careful, whether you're talking about, issues relating to our Jewish brothers and sisters, issues relating to African Americans. People have the right to have an opposing view. And I think we have to be careful that we're not defining anti-Semitism based upon, people disagreeing with Netanyahu, who is the prime minister of Israel. That can't be, anti-Semitism, nor can it be, anti-Black because you disagree with somebody who happens to be Black. So we have to be really, really careful. And that's why I'm really concerned about that monitor at Columbia University. Are they going to squelch free speech? Are they going to allow people to have a debate and say, hey, I disagree? So that's something that we really have to take a look at and be concerned about. And then the other thing that Renee probably can point out is that Columbia has such a rich history of protests. The Vietnam protests, a lot of that centered at Columbia University. So there's always been a rich history of student protests. So it's very disconcerting for me. So I would be just curious, what have the Black alumni done at Columbia? Has the university held meetings? What have they done, if anything?
Renee? Did we lose her again?
I don't know.
Yeah, we might have lost. Well, but she's right about one thing, Marlon. New York, which is probably considered the financial capital of the world, has now become political barnstorming of the United States. We have the crazy mayoral election. We have attack on one of the nation's most prestigious university ever, Columbia University. And we see all kind of thing with ICE. And it seems like to me that this story with Columbia University just struck me the wrong way, because it's clear to me that we're heading the wrong direction. I fail to understand why they would just fold that easily and agree to pay money. And I don't see the wrongdoing. They're meant to nothing, I guess, but they're paying out money for a settlement. Doesn't make any sense to me.
It's really mind-blowing.
But the thing to really look at
It's going to metastasize and spread to other universities. If you look at the administration, they basically said they want the Columbia model to be the model in terms of how they're going to engage in negotiations with Harvard. If Harvard, capitulates, or Brown, or I think they're also looking at University of Michigan and other schools. So they have a situation where they're actually monitoring the admissions decision of these universities and hiring decisions. That's not going to be good for us. So it's certainly a clear and present danger. And I think alumni of all these universities, we need to get together and start asking a very important question. If we're not careful, we'll be back to that period that we talked about before, the 1950s and 1960s, where there was nobody in the photographs of these class pictures. Really have to be careful.
Okay, caller, you're back on the line. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, this is Renee again. I hope this is a little bit better, but I'm having some phone issues that I'm working out. But I wanted to say that New York City has become instrumental, I think, in what's going to happen with the Congress next year. And I wanted to say that I think that every blue-led state should redistrict now, should not wait for Texas to redistrict. I think they should go ahead and do it at this.
Well, you see, I'm concerned though when a prestigious university like Columbia just fold like that, and we have very low African American enrollment now at all these universities, and now there are foreclosing opportunities that we fought hard to make progress on. And so if this becomes the model for all these universities, it's going to exclude the upward mobility of a lot of Blacks across the country. And unfortunately, when a wealthy university like Columbia can fold, it's in a chilling effect, I feel, all across the country. Yeah, we lost you again, Renee.
Another thing to look at too is that, we'll have to really look at New York in terms of a canary in the coal mine, that we have a candidate for mayor that, people supported, the establishment supported, and then you have a candidate that is speaking to the issues that people want to hear about. So if the Democratic Party is not speaking to these issues, pushing back against DEI, pushing back against the immigration, you're going to see these more progressive candidates get elected. And so I know there's a big push to make sure the candidate doesn't win. But if the leadership is not speaking to the issues that people think that they're concerned about, Medicaid cuts, immigration, DEI rollbacks, I think you're going to push people either to stay on the couch or find a more progressive candidate. So I think it should be a clarion call for the Democratic Party to speak up.
Well, here's what I think that you have to do, Renee, particularly there in New York. We got to get people all across the country, and we got to get the Black voting up past 90% in each election. We have to do what we have to do to make sure that our voices are heard. Also, I think that we have to reach out to the Latino community a little bit more aggressively, because now I've been seeing these reels, Renee and everybody, in which a lot of the Latinos are saying they regret voting for Trump. Latino men, 50% voted for Trump. And what was shocking, Marlon, I saw these reels and it was a sad commentary. I've seen 3 reels where the Hispanic person will say, well, I used to see the African-American being harassed by a police officer, and I just thought that they were being criminals. Now I see the same thing happen to our people who are not criminals. And for the first time, I realized that they were being harassed unnecessarily and that they had legitimate gripes. I said, wow, it took you this long to figure that out? With all these lawsuits, all these protests, all the dying, all the suffering, for you to figure out that the gripes of African Americans were legitimate, that there is police abuse that's been proven by case after case after case. I've tried cases where Blacks were shot and killed, and you didn't think it was legitimate?
We had the famous stop and frisk case in New York where there was factual findings that they were targeting African Americans. This was in New York City. So, people should have been aware of that. But I think that the thing I want to really mention is that there was a bait and switch. It was sold to the Hispanic community that they were only going to impact those that were criminals. And people didn't read the fine print. They didn't do research on the people that are going to be making the decisions. So instead, what actually happened is instead of just focusing on criminals, they're focusing on people that have been here for years. That have been working, that have been paying taxes. So I think it should be a lesson to all of us that, hey, you gotta verify. You have to do your research. You have to, look at 2 or 3 sources of media so that you're fully informed and that you are using your vote in an informed manner. That right to vote is very important, and you throw it away if you're not doing research, if you're not, getting information from a reputable newspaper, going to a podcast of people that are reputable, getting the information so you can make informed decisions is very, very important for our democracy.
Well, I like to thank our callers. I'm sorry we had some technical difficulty with several of our callers today. Sorry we couldn't reach you. But the storyline is the same. Every day you're going to see a lot of misinformation. And we saw this week, Marlon, one of the first time I've seen a Trump person correct the president making these blatant misrepresentations. Powell basically, claiming credit for a building that was built, by the prior administration, takes credit for things he didn't do, and then blame people for stuff that he did. And you got to remember that in order for us to maintain democracy in America, it's going to come down to one simple truism. That is, unless you participate in the political process by voting, getting your neighbors, your friends to vote, we can lose this precious thing that make America exceptional. So thank you for listening to our show today. Please join us next Saturday as we deal with another issue today. Thank you, everyone, and thank our special guests. Take care, everybody. God bless you all.